welcome. Campbell here from Autodidactic, and I have with me today Ryder from Raised by Giants. And Ryder's just put out a new doco with Jay Widener based on, well, lots of things, but mainly The Shining and the hidden messages they've found in it. It's called A Clockwork Shining. And obviously it's a pretty famous Stanley Kubrick film, and I've seen a few of the videos put out there about the hidden messages, and they're talking about space and the moon landing and all this kind of stuff. But you've come up with basically a completely different message that was given by this by Kubrick through this film. So I'll just give you the floor, mate, and you can go ahead and let us know what you found. How you going?
Thanks for having me on, Campbell. Really appreciate it. And yeah, The Shining is really a movie that has been theorized about for a really, really long time. There's so many theories surrounding what The Shining is really about. And Jay Widener, that you just brought up, had done two previous movies to this one called A Kubrick's Odyssey 1 and A Kubrick's Odyssey 2, where he basically theorized that The Shining is Kubrick's confession to faking the moon landing. That's where that entire theory comes from. It comes from Jay Widener. And I'd been watching The Shining several times, and I was going to bring Jay on my show to have a discussion about his two movies and what he had found within The Shining and Stanley Kubrick and his decode of it. And I found something new, and I was talking to him about it, and I'm like, Jay, I think this is what the movie's really about, and I think it's pretty solid. We should do a movie about it. And he was like, yeah, let's for sure do a movie about it. And then we decided to do JFKX first to kind of cut our teeth on it, because he's a film producer. He's been making movies for a really long time. He was the head of Gaia, the film department at Gaia. And so we decided to do JFKX first, which JFKX is also on Amazon Prime as well. And then we used the money that we made from that movie to fund this movie, because there's a lot of more moving parts to this movie. We had more people in this movie. We have author and researcher Mark Devlin, which a lot of people are familiar with from the UK. He's done a lot of research into the music industry, and we also have Kathy O'Brien, which is the MK Ultra Monarch survivor, really popular in the community. And then we have Joe Atwell, which is another author and researcher, and we have AFOSI Air Force Special Agent Walter Bosley, also in the movie. So this one took um, more time and more effort and more energy to put all this together. But I'm really happy that we did it like that. And this one wasn't my first movie, so I'm a second time director, baby. But so as I was watching The Shining over and over again, I'm starting to see things that I was seeing things that people had already seen before, and then I was also seeing new things within The Shining, because really it's a movie that every single time that you watch it, Campbell, you see something different. But I thought that people had just dissected this movie to apart and found every possible thing that could possibly be found within this movie. And I was wrong, because I found several things within the movie that point to the fact that our theory that we present in A Clockwork Shining on Amazon Prime Video is the correct theory of what The Shining is really about. And it boils down to Stanley Kubrick being using The Shining as an experiment. Kubrick is not only using The Shining as an experiment on the audience, the people that are watching it, with all of the continuity errors, which I'm going to bring up some slides here in a little bit here later on, that really go in depth about these continuity errors. Because there's not only continuity errors with objects disappearing and reappearing or moving around from shot to shot, there's also dialogue continuity errors, which is so interesting because Kubrick had an entire team behind him making his movies. This isn't like a one man show like your show, Campbell. It's probably just you, and my
Yeah.
show, it's just me. We're doing everything. So we're spread really thin a lot of the time. Not with Kubrick. He had like a huge team of researchers and people behind him that was doing all this. So this had to have gone past several people's eyes, and all these continuity errors are so blatantly obvious, but some of them are so meticulous that is difficult to catch them on the first couple of times through the movie, especially the dialogue errors within the movie. So I'm going to present some of that here today for your audience, and we're going to dive into what Kubrick was really trying to present with the movie The Shining, because like I mentioned, Jay had come up with his theory of what The Shining is really about, with it being in his previous two films, that Kubrick was it was his confession to faking the moon landing, which there is a lot of evidence for that, which I'll also show in these slides that we're going to get into. But what was your reception of it whenever you watched it?
Yeah, yeah. So I've never seen The Shining before. I've just watched it this week, which was, I'm just basically not a horror person, and I thought it was a horror. It's not really a
It's
horror
not
movie
really a
though.
horror
After
movie, yeah.
seeing it. No, no. One thing I found that was interesting through your doco, which was awesome as well, I've watched that, was that because it's a Stephen King story, he didn't like the movie and he actually went and remade it. I never knew that. So that I found very interesting. But yeah, like the points that you come up with and your take on it is definitely something that I've never heard before. I've seen, obviously some of the other decodes on the movie. But watching it and your doco, like it makes a lot of sense, and especially it makes a lot of sense in the bigger picture of what's going on in the world at the moment. It has been sort of going on for the last 50, 60, 70 years. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense what
So
you're
did you
saying.
did you
So yeah, I
watch
really enjoyed the.
did you watch The Shining before you watched the documentary, or did you watch the documentary and then watch The
So
Shining?
I actually watched half of The Shining, up until the point just before Jack, goes a bit crazy. Then I watched your doco, and then I watched the second half. So
Oh
it
wow.
wasn't, I didn't mean to do that. It's just sort of the way it worked out. But doing it that way was actually really good, I thought. So yeah, I could definitely got your gist of it, your take on it, watching the second half because I guess that's where most of the stuff happens, right? Is his sort of descent into craziness. I'll just leave it like that. I don't want to give away your theory too early, but yeah, I found it made sense to me. And with all the other stuff I look into the whole what's going on with the bigger picture and those who wish to rule us and what they're actually doing. It just made a lot of sense to me. Yeah.
That's wild that you watched for the first time half The Shining, and then you watched our documentary Clockwork Shining, and then you finished The Shining. That had to have been quite an experience. That'd have been
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
shocking,
It was.
actually. Yeah.
It definitely got me thinking. Yeah, so it sort of went over, well, 2 days, basically one night, then your doco during the day, then finished it the next night. Um, so yeah, it was like it was. I think it was a good way to do it. It really sort of I got the message and then could sort of watch, the descent of Jack and sort of get your meaning out of it. So yeah, it was a good way to do it, I thought.
Let me ask you a question real quick. Did you, because I have several people that I've done interviews with, my friend Ryan Gable, that's on my channel, Raised by Giants is on there with my friend Mike and my other, from Parallel Mike podcast, and my other friend Tim. They've all had really strange dreams after they watched my movie. Did you happen to have any weird dreams that stuck out to you after you'd watched the movie that night?
Well, now that you mention it, yeah, I have had some pretty strange dreams in the last couple of nights. Um, yeah, not that I was, it was anything to do with the actual movie, but they were just
Right. Yeah.
weird. Um, just very, very strange. Yes, definitely. I have. Yeah, I have.
That's a weird one, dude. That's been reported so many times. Like there's something like strange, and it revolves around Stanley Kubrick's film and the way that it's shot and the imagery and the type of music and the sound effects that he uses within The Shining, which our documentary, A Clockwork Shining, heavily, reflects a lot of that imagery because we put a lot of clips from The Shining inside of our
Mhm.
documentary. But I had had the same type of experience, and I thought that I was one of the only ones, but not with my documentary, but with watching The Shining. Because I would watch it all the time, trying to figure out more things about it. And I left it on one night, and I had some of the most bizarre, strange, weird dreams that I had ever had. And then I was like, oh, I can't watch this whenever I'm going to sleep. And then when the movie was almost complete, well, it was complete, I sent it to Jay Widener for him to watch it. And he did a screening of like 4 to 5 people. Then he contacted them the next day, and they all said that they had really strange and weird dreams after they had watched our movie. And then I sent it to Ryan Gable, which I was mentioning. He said that he had really weird and strange dreams after he watched it. And then it's just been this theme of people having, I think one person, I think my friend Tim, on his show, he said that it wasn't like a nightmare. It was just like weird, like where he was like on an elevator and he was just like falling forever. And then he uh, ended up someplace else, like just weird, strange dreams. So we're continuing the theme here this evening with these strange dreams. And it doesn't have anything to do
Crazy.
with my film, guys. I didn't put anything in there. There's nothing symbolically put in there. All the tones are all stock tones. All the music is all royalty free music. There's not any ELF
Yeah.
weird frequencies like that Obama movie on Netflix. Got nothing
No,
like
well, I
that.
watched, yeah, I watched half of The Shining and had a weird dream that night. So before I'd seen your doco, so it definitely wasn't. And then again, after the second half, again, but yeah, not horror dreams or anything
Mm.
like that or nightmares, just weird, just strange.
And
So
that's what
that's
Kubrick.
interesting, especially, given your take on the movie and what it's about, that's even more interesting, right?
Absolutely. I mean, and that's what Kubrick was a master at doing, is like affecting that subconscious layer of the viewer. And that's a big reason for a lot of these continuity errors within The Shining. It's to affect the subconscious layer of the mind as the viewer is watching the movie. So the viewer slowly starts to question their reality, just as Jack is starting to question his reality within the movie as well.
Yeah, because the continuity sort of fragments the movie bit, and that's what we're going to be talking about, like the fragmenting of the mind, right?
Yeah, and all the symbolism within there, the foreshadowing that Kubrick puts in there, which is just unbelievable foreshadowing that goes over the top of a lot of people's heads. And once you see it in this way, like once you've watched our documentary, A Clockwork Shining, you will see this in a completely new light. You won't be able to see The Shining in any different way, because all the things that we point out within The Shining, it all makes sense and it all connects in together. And once you see one thing, the entire movie starts to become about this. And Kubrick, this is really the most strange part of the entire movie, really, I believe personally, is in the first 10 minutes of The Shining. Because within the first 10 minutes of The Shining, you, eh, Stuart Ullman, which looks a lot like JFK, Kubrick put him there on purpose. He basically explains to Jack the entire plot of the movie, everything that's going to happen after that. He says, this isn't a physically demanding job. This is more of a psychological job. This is a mental job. You got to be up here, you're isolated. And we know how isolation works on people. It's a classic mind control technique. You got the Kubar counterintelligence manual. It's a book that you can read about how the CIA would, yeah, essentially torture people to get information out of them. And a lot of that had to do with sensory deprivation and isolation. And then Allman goes on to explain that the previous caretaker at the Overlook Hotel was named Charles Grady, and that he had killed his wife and two daughters at the hotel. So he's explaining everything that's going to happen to Jack in that first 10 minutes of the movie, that
Mm.
people really overlook when they're watching. They probably think that it's kind of boring because it is just 10 minutes of just straight dialogue in the beginning of the movie. But I really think that they overlook that entire part of the movie in general that we really bring to the forefront in our documentary.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And it's filmed in a way that it doesn't look like it's too meaningful. So I guess, like you say, people just don't take a lot of that in and give it much attention, and they sort of focus on, once they get to the hotel, right? And I mean, even Jack Nicholson, his character, before they move in, after watching I mean, like I said, it's the first time I've seen it, but after watching your doco, there's definitely signs that, he's not quite stable, shall we say.
Yeah, and that's another thing about Stanley Kubrick as well, is like it, the actors in Stanley Kubrick's movies, Stanley Kubrick either makes them a great actor and they go along to be very successful in film and in movies and in Hollywood, or he completely crushes their career, completely destroys them. And there's a lot of references between real life and Kubrick's movies as well. There's, they're echoing each other. Like with the Clockwork Orange that came out, it was banned in the UK because in the UK there was like crime was rising, there was murders that was that surrounded a Clockwork Orange coming out in theaters. So Kubrick ended up pulling the movie from the UK and several other countries. And then with Lolita, that we bring up in our documentary as well, with Sue Lyon, which is the main actor in the movie Lolita. The thing that the movie is about, which the movie is essentially about pedophilia, is happening to Sue Lyon on the set while she's making the movie in real life by James B. Harris,
Yeah,
Kubrick's production. His producer is doing the same thing to Sue Lyon as that she's playing a role in Lolita. That is, it's unbelievable. And also with The Shining and Shelley Duvall, like, and that ruined Sue Lyon's career. She didn't do anything after Lolita, and she was 14 years old at the time in the filming of that movie. And with The Shining and Shelley Duvall, Kubrick was traumatizing Shelley Duvall to such a degree that, which we have it in the documentary. I'm sure you remember the scene, the interview with Shelley Duvall, where she's like, "I don't understand why Kubrick was doing this to me. How can he be doing this to me?" And it's really traumatizing Shelley Duvall. So it's Kubrick's not only doing an experiment on the audience, he's also doing an experiment while he's making the movie on the actors within the movie. And then he's also doing another experiment as he's rewriting the movie as he's making the movie. He's rewriting the script as he's making the entire movie. And as like anybody that is involved with film to like that degree, as like a director or like a filmmaker or anyone that's done anything with film, you got to make sure your script is completely written before you even go into production. Like that's just a given. But we also talk about in the movie how that it's a high possibility that Kubrick was given The Shining by Warner Brothers, because Warner Brothers had a pre-published copy of Stephen King's novel, The Shining, and it's a high possibility that Kubrick was kind of pushed to make The Shining because his movie that he had come out with previously, which was Barry Lyndon, was not a success. It wasn't a critical success. It lost a lot of money. The audience didn't like it. So it's theorized that Warner Brothers kind of pushed him to make his next movie based off of Stephen King's novel, because they had already had a tremendous success with a A-list director, directing and making a film adaptation of another horror novel, which was The Exorcist, which was directed by William Friedkin. And so it's we kind of put together that maybe this was Warner Brothers' idea, and maybe Kubrick turned in a script to Warner Brothers that was more in line with Stephen King's novel. And then as he was filming the movie, he was rewriting the entire movie to make it to exactly the way that he wanted it to be.
Yeah, get his message across. I mean, I guess that's another question. Was it his message, or was it a message he was told to get across by other agencies, shall we say? Because he's got ties, obviously, to some three-letter agencies, hasn't he, from the US?
Yes, during the filming of Doctor Strangelove, which is basically about, nuclear devastation, dropping nuclear bombs, which revolved sort of around the Cold War. Kubrick wanted to recreate the inside of a B-2 stealth bomber, and he asked permission from the military to get for them to show him what the inside of a B-2 stealth bomber so he could get it accurate. Well, the military wouldn't let him see because it was classified at that time, and if any other country were to get that information, then they could duplicate it and recreate it, and then they would have the secrets would be revealed. So the military said no. So then Kubrick went to his production designer and was like, "Hey, what are we going to do here? The military won't let us, see the inside of this craft." So then his production designer started cutting out all of these magazines and manuals and newspapers to try and figure out what the inside of a B-2 stealth bomber looked like, and then they built their set. And when they built their set, the military actually came and visited Stanley Kubrick on the set of Doctor Strangelove and was like blown back and shocked by how accurate they made the set of the B-2 stealth bomber as to the inside of a real B-2 stealth bomber looked like. And they thought that Kubrick had leaked this, gotten somehow, like someone high up in the military had leaked this information to Stanley Kubrick. And we have Kubrick's production designer in the movie talking about this and how Kubrick told him, "Oh, well, you better have all your ducks in a row here and know exactly how you got this information about how you built the inside of a B-2 stealth bomber without actually knowing what the inside of a B-2 stealth bomber looks like, or we're going to be investigated by the FBI." Then also at the original credits at the end of 2001: A Space Odyssey, Kubrick thanked all of these intelligence communities, the military, Air Force, intelligence, Langley, Virginia, all of these big time intelligence communities in the military and all government contractors, DARPA, like all these people. And Kubrick is what essentially happened was the military saw that. Well, someone from the military saw the ending credits and was like, "Hey, you can't be putting the names of our agencies that we were a part of this production or that we were any way whatsoever involved with the production of this movie." But then we also show in the documentary how since then, through FOIA requests that people have put in, that the military and the government has been involved in the production of several movies since then. The Transformers movies, Die Another Day, they've all been involved in the production of all those movies. So it's kind of come to light now, but back then when Doctor Strangelove in 2001: A Space Odyssey was being made, it was more of like a hush-hush thing. And then we also have in the documentary too, which is a smoking gun evidence that Kubrick was, indeed working for the government, which we have a document that shows that he was being looked at for, some kind of unknown project. And I actually have a trailer here for our documentary that I want to play really quickly so it gives you guys a better idea of what's going on here.
Hallucinogenic drugs, hypnosis, electric shocks to the brain.
Stop it, please, I beg you!
Some of the methods used in secret CIA mind control experiments.
There are many theories as to what The Shining is really about, from the faking of the moon landing to Native American genocide and the Holocaust.
Now, if he did fake the Apollo moon landing, then he probably has really deep connections into the intelligence world. Why are there these gigantic continuity errors in this movie?
The occulted meaning has to be comprehensible. It's just hidden, usually in a very systematic way, so that it could be understood by someone coming along later on who knows what the real meaning is supposed to be.
We believe that there's something even more sinister lurking beneath the surface of this masterful film.
So Lookout Mountain Hotel looked a lot like the Overlook Hotel.
You realise that there's no such thing as coincidences like that.
As Lookout Mountain Studios, ran by the Air Force.
That told the story of nuclear weapons testing by the United States.
Of the Army, Navy, and Air Force, the Air Force was known to be the most excited, the most turned on by MK Ultra and its prospects.
Reportedly, there were more films made at Lookout Mountain than at all the other film studios in Hollywood.
We really don't know what these famous film directors were being recruited for, what project or whatever. Was it the moon landing?
The CIA's MK Ultra programs were admitted to the public in 1975, 5 years before the release of The Shining.
These experiments were done without the informed consent of the patients.
Look at some UFO cases, and the things that are reported tells me that MK Ultra is likely being applied.
In my MK Ultra mind control experience, I was taken to various military, NASA, and DARPA installations for sophisticated mind control programming.
Walt Disney, Marilyn Monroe, James Stewart, Cary Grant, Ronald Reagan. Nobody really knows what they were doing up there.
As well as high-ranking military and Department of Defense personnel.
What people don't realize is that many of the people that worked with Kubrick also worked with Kennedy. This is actually the smoking gun proving that Kubrick was working with the government.
These were all CIA-sponsored experiments.
I said, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains.
And putting little symbolic, cryptic clues and Easter eggs pertaining to the fact that they're still doing it.
These clues include a hidden swastika in the background of the gold room.
What was the setup, what it was being told, and realize that it was a lie all along.
But right there in the narrative, in the dialogue, they're telling you that this was a very real program coming out of those nice folks at the CIA.
Here's Johnny!
So that was a little trailer to give you guys a better idea of what the movie's about.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, Mark Devlin, like, had some interesting comments too with the music industry and how, you know, we know from the 60s in Laurel Canyon, they're all children of basically the military, Air Force, Navy, you know, the Defense Force, aren't they? Which as far as I can tell, like, war is one of the biggest mind control MK Ultra devices there is, right? Trauma-based mind control. So there's a lot, there's just a lot of connections in the doco. It's really well done, and it covers a very wide range of things. So definitely worth checking out, guys. We'll leave the link below so you can go and have a look at it.
Yeah, that's a big thing for me as well. As I was making the movie, I was like, holy crap, this is like the reason why it doesn't matter. You can be the best singer in the world. You can be the best musician in the world. It doesn't matter if you don't have the right connections. If you don't have the right people behind you. And that's a big thing that Mark Devlin brings into this documentary, is that through his research, he's discovered that all these big bands came up in the 60s, all had high-ranking military connections. Their fathers were all high-ranking military personnel. There wasn't anybody that had normal jobs, which is that's not a coincidence. You wouldn't find somebody that was an electrician or a plumber or a taxi driver or a trash man, a garbage man. You know, they're all their fathers are all high-ranking military officers, and one of those, the biggest one, is Jim Morrison of the Doors. His dad was responsible for the Gulf of Tonkin false flag incident that got us into the Vietnam War, that killed thousands of people. Bob Marley's father was also a British naval commander. Sharon Tate's dad was a high-ranking military officer, and these people are actors. We show a clip from a Florida State University commercial with Jim Morrison in it, like 2 years before all the stuff happens with the Doors, and he's clean shaven, he's clean cut, and he's an actor. But that's the way that it is with a lot of these people. Tupac is the same way. Tupac is an actor, was an actor. Like these people are, I mean, Britney Spears the same exact way. And I'm actually having a Britney Spears body double on my show this weekend on Saturday. She was the body double for Britney Spears in the music video Womanizer.
That's not Julia, is it?
Julia, yes.
Yeah, okay. Interesting.
Yeah. What she reached out to me, I'd met her a couple of times. Before we had met in person at some conferences, and she had reached out to me because she watched the documentary, and she was like, "Hey, like I was Britney Spears' body double." I was like, "What?" Well, one, like, why does Britney Spears need a body double? You know, and then she was also telling me a lot of very interesting things, like where the music video was filmed at, like.
Yes, yeah. I've
What
talked
is
to her
going
about
on
this.
here? Why?
Mm.
Why is this a thing? But yeah, I'm having her on Saturday on my show on Raised by Giants. You can get that on YouTube or any and
Nice.
all
I'll have
podcast
to-
platforms. And then you know, like all these people were, and it's also really shocking as well when you realize that the CIA was basically responsible for the entire hippie movement. They started that entire culture of people, and then they had to kind of squash it out and destroy it with the Manson Tate murders, which worked out nicely in their
Yeah,
favor because then they just incorporated murder and serial killers and cults all into the movement, and it kind of disbanded the entire hippie movement, which was created to destroy the anti-war movement. So they created
yeah.
a
And many
monster, and they
people,
were like, "Holy shit, what do we do about this thing that we've created?" Well, I know what we'll do. We'll try and involve murder and serial killers and cults, and then we'll infiltrate it in that way. And then when that happened in 1969, the hippie movement was over at that point. It was like the nail in the
very
coffin.
quickly. Yeah. Many people might not know that Charles Manson was actually he was in the music industry, but he was up part of Laurel Canyon, and something I didn't know that I learned from the doco was so was Jack Nicholson, and he was in some of these early hippie movies and things. So there's a lot of connections, man.
A lot. And yeah, he was in several of the hippie LSD movies. He was in the Monkees movie Head. He was in Chinatown, which Chinatown was written and made by Roman Polanski, and then Roman Polanski actually raped a 13-year-old girl at Jack Nicholson's house, and then he fled the country to avoid prosecution. And then at that exact same time, Jack Nicholson also left the country to go to England to shoot The Shining. So there's so many different rabbit holes that we go down in this movie. And like I was mentioning, if you don't like, even if you don't like Stanley Kubrick, if you've never seen The Shining, like you had never seen The Shining before, I don't think that it really mattered because there's so many different things within our movie, A Clockwork Shining, that people can enjoy and hopefully find out things that they didn't know about before. But I definitely want to get into these slides because this really flushes out the entire. Hold on, let me get it. Flushes out the entire stuff, and a lot of this stuff isn't even in our movie, so you guys are getting a special treat with a lot of these slides. Okay, desktop one. Boom. Can you see it?
Yep, all good.
Cool. Okay, so as I was watching the Shining over and over again, I was finding things that people hadn't seen before, and one of the first things that I found that absolutely no one has ever seen before, and if they tell you that they've seen it before, they're definitely lying, which is when Jack stands up from the bar there's a lady that walks past that has a what looks like a bloody handprint on the back of her dress. Now, people come after me and try to say this isn't really a bloody handprint, that it's a part of the dress, blah, 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 blah. But regardless, it looks like a bloody handprint, regardless if it was a part of the dress or it was a part of the design. It doesn't have to be that someone actually put their bloody handprint on the back of her dress. It could be a part of the dress, doesn't really matter. Regardless, it looks like a bloody handprint. And what this handprint really resembles, whenever you see this, you probably think of another movie that almost had this identical thing that happened 2 decades later, which is Castaway with Tom Hanks.
Yeah, right. Nice.
Same type of handprint on the volleyball in the year of 2000 when Castaway came out. It's almost identical. And
Yeah. I think we all know a bit more about Tom Hanks, in the last couple of years too, don't we?
oh man, we can get down and dirty with some with some Tom Hanks stuff there. He's been put through the ringer there, but I put this as an example because people were like, oh well, why does it only have four fingers on the hamper? Which that could be related to some occult things and demonic activity as well, but this proves that a bloody handprint can be 4 fingers because that's the 4-fingered bloody handprint that's on the Wilson volleyball whenever Tom Hanks accidentally cuts open his hand while he's trying to start a fire and leaves his handprint on the volleyball. So
Yeah.
bloody
And then the
handprints.
volleyball,
Handprints can't be 4 fingers, okay?
and that volleyball then develops a personality, right? Becomes a being in the movie pretty much, another character. So that sort of as well points towards, mind fracturing and mind control and those kind of things.
Absolutely, it does. I mean, it can relate to a lot of things. It can human trafficking, like everything. You can get in, you can go so many different ways with it. But there's also light switches that disappear within The Shining whenever Halloran is giving a tour to Danny and Wendy in the beginning of the movie. There's a light switch that's beside the storage room, which we also talk about in the movie. It sounds like Halloran says story room, not storage room, which is super interesting. The setup and the foreshadowing of the scene by Halloran in the beginning of the movie. And then when Wendy is dragging Jack's body after she hits him over the head with the baseball bat, the light switch right here is completely gone. It's not there anymore. And it's the same exact set because up here at the top with Halloran, where my cursor is, says it has the ending of the chef's office, and you see the word office, and then right down here says chef's office. So it's the exact same set with a light switch missing. And there's another one where light switches will appear. So whenever Jack is first going up to the hotel to do the interview with Ullman and Bill Watson, there isn't a light switch underneath this picture over here, but later in the movie, whenever Jack goes into the Ullman's office to destroy the radio, there's magically a set of light switches right there under the picture. It's wild. And then this one I mentioned, I think, did I mention this one already with you with the hedge maze? Anyway, regardless if I did or not. But in the beginning establishing shot of the Overlook Hotel within the movie The Shining, you can't see a hedge maze in the background.
Yeah.
There's no hedge maze there. But later on in the film, obviously, there's a hedge maze. It's a crucial part of the entire movie is the hedge maze. Now, people can say that this was, there isn't a hedge maze at Timberline Lodge where the exterior shots of The Shining was shot, which there isn't. There isn't one at the Stanley Hotel in Colorado either, though they have included one since this movie's out in the front part of the hotel, but it's still a continuity error within the movie because in the establishing shot, it's not there, but then later on, it is there. So regardless, it's still a continuity error. This one's really interesting, which other people have pointed out, that Jack's tie in The Shining, when we first, meet Jack and he's sitting down, his tie looks almost the identical pattern as the Hedge maze, which is another foreshadowing type of event that Kubrick does throughout the movie. And there's other ones that he does as well that we're also going to get into. But this one's just really interesting, which is set up for that amazing shot where Jack is going to look at the model of the maze, and then the inside of the hotel turns into the outside exterior shot of Danny and Wendy in the maze. This one is one that people have seen a lot of, which we also have in our movie, talking about the sticker that disappears on Danny's door. There's a sticker of Dopey, the dwarf from the Seven Dwarfs. And it's there whenever we see Danny in the bathroom. And then later on, whenever the doctor comes to examine Danny, the sticker is gone. There's another foreshadowing event that we're going to get into later on that revolves around this scene as well with the doctor. There's actually two of them. This one is really interesting because whenever Wendy is talking to the doctor about this is a dialogue error. Whenever Wendy's talking to the doctor about how, when Danny got abused and then he started having these visions and these, psychic abilities, though they don't specifically say psychic abilities, she tells the doctor that it's been 5 months since Danny was abused and Jack stopped drinking. So Jack has been sober for 5 months. But then later on, when Jack is explaining the event to Lloyd, the bartender, and he's confessing to Lloyd that he did in fact hurt Danny, he says that it was 3 years ago. So this is a really big continuity dialogue error within the movie. Wendy's saying that it was that he's been sober for 5 months after he injured Danny's arm, and then when Jack is talking to Lloyd, he says that it happened 3 years ago. This is one that other people have pointed out, which is the Kool-Aid on top of the refrigerator in Wendy and Jack's apartment in Boulder, Colorado, which the Kool-Aid could be reference to the Jim Jones event that happened just 2 years while this movie was actually being filmed. It was happening, the Jim Jones event with the Kool-Aid where they all, drink the Kool-Aid and passed away, right?
Themselves. Yep.
Yeah. This one is a really interesting one, which is a clear plastic tarp that can be seen as Danny is riding his tricycle through the hotel. It's just a small one there, but it looks like a plastic set tarp that is in the shot of Danny there. This one's another one that people have seen and pointed out several times that is also in our documentary, which is the chair that disappears and then reappears between the shots when Wendy is going up to talk to Jack in the lobby of the hotel where he's writing his book. The shot is on Jack. There's a chair and a coffee table right up here, and then the next shot is of Wendy, and then when it comes back to Jack, the chair and the coffee table is gone. And then it goes back to Wendy, and then the shot goes back to Jack, it reappears again. The chair and the coffee table is there again. It's the mysterious case of the disappearing and reappearing chair and coffee table in the background. This one's really interesting too, because Ullman says to Jack, Jack gets the wrong amount of time. This is another dialogue error within the movie. Jack gets the wrong amount of time that they will be up there at the hotel. He mistakenly says that 5 months of peace is just what I need when it's really 7 months. The hotel is closed 7 months out of the year, open for 5, but he says, I'll get 5 months of peace is just what I need. This is one that is sexual innuendo. There's a lot of sexual innuendo in The Shining. This one is one of the more noticeable ones, which is whenever Jack comes in to shake hands with Ullman and introduce himself, there's a paper tray on the desk. This black paper tray right here makes it look like Ullman is, getting hard on toward Jack. Another one is a teddy bear in the background of Wendy and Danny. The teddy bear has a fire truck next to it, and the fire truck ladder is sticking up, giving the appearance that the teddy bear has a heart on. There's a lot of teddy bear symbolism within the movie that we're going to get into here in a few other slides. But also, if you look right here, I have it in the next couple of slides, but right next to the teddy bear here down on the left where the fire truck ladder is protruding from the teddy bear, this is where Wendy picks up the baseball bat. Is right next to the teddy bear. And this is a foreshadowing. This is a brand new one. I haven't posted this one. This one is brand new for your show, Cambell. So in the beginning of the movie, when the doctor is examining Danny right here on this left panel, there's a curtain right here that is like with like a cartoon character with a baseball bat. And then later on, before Jack goes to look at the model of the maze, there's a baseball bat on the couch next to him that he directly looks at. It's in his eyesight. See where this arrow's coming out and coming around and then down? That's in his view. He's looking at the baseball bat on the couch, which is foreshadowing for the events that's going to happen. And then later on, Wendy picks up the baseball bat off the couch in their apartment upstairs. So it's just scattered out throughout the movie, which is unbelievable foreshadowing and hard to catch. And there's another one right here that I don't know how I can move that, but I'm just going to try and zoom in. But this doll right here where my cursor is, people have said that this looks almost identical to Wendy. Wendy has the same getup with the red, white, and blue on, and that it looks like she's holding a baseball bat here, or an axe, or maybe this is Jack, holding an axe or whatever, this, doll. But in this shot, it looks like what would be Wendy, but it's really a goofy doll. In later shots, you get a better look at it, but it does look like what Wendy is wearing within The Shining, the red, white, and blue. This is Wendy finding the baseball bat to strike Jack with on the couch when it was previously downstairs on the couch next to Jack before he looks at the model of the maze. This one's really interesting. This one is when Danny first sees room 237, and to the right here where the arrow is pointing, there's a door that's closed, but then in the next shot, the door is open. This one is the carpet switching patterns. This is another continuity error that other people have pointed out within The Shining. When the ball rolls for Danny, which is really, honestly, one of the only continuity errors. I mean, not continuity errors. One of the only paranormal things that really happened throughout the entire movie that is unexplainable is the ball rolling toward Danny. And when it rolls toward Danny, you can see the open facing hexagon shaped carpet pattern here. And then in the next shot, it's closed facing. Right down here where
And that's a huge one because they would have literally had to relay the carpet to do that.
Either that or Kubrick just turned him around in the scene to the opposite direction. But everything is basically laid out
exactly the same. Yeah.
Exactly the same, yeah. This is another foreshadowing about the bears. So when the doctor comes to visit Danny at their apartment in Boulder, he's laying on a stuffed bear. And then later on, when Wendy goes upstairs after she has been traumatized by Jack trying to kill her with an axe, she sees the guy in the bear costume that is looks like he's performing a sexual act on this man right here. And when you watch our movie, all of these scenes are really going to make sense. Now, you're going to have to put two and two together of exactly what's going on in this scene, because this scene has been used for so much speculation. But I'll just give you a hint. here is that none of the things that are happening within the Overlook are ghosts. None of them are. It's not paranormal. Like these
Yeah.
people, these people are real people at the Overlook. So that's all that I'll say about that. You have to watch the movie to really
Yeah.
understand exactly what's going on.
Just a weird scene, that one, isn't it? It's just so just random in the movie.
It is, but I wish I could say it because it makes so much
Random.
it makes so much sense, but it would just give away the entire
Well,
plot of
teddy
the
bears
movie.
have a lot to do with the whole MK Ultra thing, don't they? I remember reading this book, and I'm trying to think of who wrote it. It was a short story, and it was actually about this person that they turned into a murderer. And the way they did it, it was set in the future, and every child had a teddy bear, and it would basically give them morals, So when they asked the teddy bear, should I do this or that, the teddy bear would teach it morals. And the way they got this person to turn into a killer is they deleted that. And there's this scene, and the child asks the teddy bear, should I kill someone? And the teddy bear doesn't answer, and so that doesn't get put into its mind, and that's how they create this murderer. I can't remember who wrote it. It was a short story. Might have been Asimov or someone, but
It was
yeah,
it was a book or a movie.
it was a book. It was a short story. I, I think it was like Asimov or maybe Arthur C. Clarke. It was in a book of short sort of sci-fi type stories, but I read it years and years ago. I just remembered it when you started talking about teddy bears.
Oh wow, that's incredible! If you can figure out what the name of
I'll think
that
about it,
short,
man. I'll let you
yeah,
know.
if you can think about it and figure it out for me, that would be incredible. Because the teddy bear has been um, used as a some kind of symbolic thing for
Mm.
pedophilia and things
Yeah,
like
and I
that.
hear the name came from Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt is where they actually started naming them teddy bears.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. Wow, that's really interesting. Teddy Roosevelt, teddy bear. There's a really good Beanie Baby movie. The guy that made the Thai Beanie Babies. It's not too bad. But this one is something that other people have pointed out that may have something to do with the moon landing, which is Tang. Tang was a really big drink for a lot of the Apollo, supposedly, of course, right? A lot of the Apollo astronauts, they would use Tang to mix with their water, and it was like the astronaut NASA approved drink was Tang. And then you have, of course, the Apollo 11 shirt that Danny is wearing. He stands up in the hallway. He's wearing the Apollo 11 shirt. He then goes into room 237, which during that time, it was rumored that, well, it wasn't rumored, it was thought that the moon was 237,000 miles away from the Earth. And that could have been a reason why Kubrick changed the number of the room from 217 to 237. It was room 217 in Stephen King's novel, and Kubrick changed it to room 237. Here's the Shining Toy Story reference. The Toy Story, the director of Toy Story put this the Shining carpet in Toy Story, which then is just a coincidence that Buzz Lightyear is basically revolves around the main character Buzz finding out that he's a fake astronaut.
And of course, Woody is Tom Hanks.
Exactly. Boom. Boom, baby. That's how we do it. Then TVs and appliances within the Shining are shown not to be plugged into anything. And this could be, Kubrick putting that in there symbolically, because if he did indeed fake the moon landing, then that would be a giant MK Ultra operation upon the public, and he's not, showing these TVs with having any kind of obvious power source, because the footage of the moon landing would not have been live as it was purported to be, live to everyone, 250,000 miles away from Earth. Somehow we can get a live feed of them landing on the moon. So it would have been a reported, it would have been a taping. They would have been showing like a taping of an event that Stanley Kubrick may or may not have been involved with doing. And during 2001: A Space Odyssey, I mean, because people say, well, he couldn't have faked the moon landing. The moon landing couldn't be fake because so many people would have had to have been in on it. And I'm like, well, they wouldn't have. Kubrick literally could have just shot some extra scenes for 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is all about space. They were using technology that had never really been used before in movies with front screen projection. And he could have just, filmed some extra scenes while they were filming 2001: A Space Odyssey. The actors would have never have known. The people that were on set would have never have known. He'd have been the only one to see the footage, because Kubrick was known for any scenes that he didn't use, any outtakes, any scenes that weren't in the movie, he would just destroy them. He would just destroy all the extra footage, outtakes, anything that wasn't in the movie, he would destroy it. So it's a high possibility that he could have shot bonus extra scenes for 2001: A Space Odyssey, not told the actors, and then those extra bonus scenes became the moon landing footage that everybody's seen. And he's trying to tell you by throwing, these TVs not having any cables or anything running to them, so they're basically watching nothing, just like the moon landing. This one's interesting because this is when Stuart Allman, which he looks a lot like JFK, he tells Jack that this is another dialogue error within the movie. He tells Jack that the previous caretaker, which is down here at the right side panel, his name was Charles Grady. But whenever Jack meets Grady in the bathroom and he spills alcohol and he's trying to clean Jack up, Grady refers to himself as Delbert Grady, not Charles Grady. Delbert Grady. This one is a really interesting, this one's wild. I don't know how this one slipped by so many people that had to have seen it. It had to have been done on purpose too. Like I was mentioning earlier, taking people into starting to question their reality, just as Jack is starting to question his reality, to symbolically give you that feeling like something is not right with this movie and affecting your subconscious on a level that you wouldn't even notice. Because this is a scene when Halloran is giving a tour to Wendy and Danny before they go into the storage room. This is the freezer room. This is the door to the freezer room. And right here on the right, you can see where the handle is, right where my cursor is, where this top arrow is pointing down. The handle to the freezer room is on the right side of the door. Then whenever they walk out of the freezer room, on this second photo down here, the handle is on the left side of the door. And the background is completely different. This first image before they walk into the freezer looks like kitchen area. There's a chalkboard in the background. There's a bunch of these dishes, which looks like a cart with plates and stuff on it. And whenever they walk out of the freezer room, the set is completely different. It's got two double doors here. It's got a fire alarm on the wall. It's got these what looks like light switches over here. There's a door panel, the window panel here where the chalkboard was before they walked in. So this is a glaring,
big one,
huge mistake. This is a completely different set. And people have tried to say, well, it's just shot from the other side. Well, if it was shot from the other side, that doesn't change the side that the door handle is on the freezer.
Yep, totally.
It's impossible. Even if it was shot from the other, you can't change the side of the door the handle of the door is on.
No, it's going to stay the same. It's just a different perspective. Yeah, totally.
This is the Shining Beatles references throughout the movie. There's so many Beatles references in The Shining. This is the Abbey Road Beatles Abbey Road album artwork, which back here is a white Beetle, which was John Lennon's white Beetle that he purchased, and they're all doing the exact same walk there.
Yeah, and that album cover too, Paul McCartney's got no shoes, and that's been speculated that they're trying to tell people that Paul was dead and he's been replaced.
And then also by the name on the license plate of the Beetle too, I think it has something to do with Paul McCartney also being dead. But there's things to do with Beatles and the band the Beatles and Volkswagen Beatles within The Shining, because Stephen King, his original collar of the Beetle that Jack drives in the novel is a red Beetle. Kubrick changed the collar to a yellow Beetle, which is seen here in the top right panel. And then when Halloran is driving up to the Overlook to see what's going on up there, when he gets psychic visions from Danny, there's a red Volkswagen Beetle that's crushed underneath a semi truck.
I can't believe you caught that. That scene is it goes by so fast, because I'd seen the doco before I saw that scene, and I was just like, how did you catch that? That's crazy.
And then there's more. Well, and then you also have the Beetle in the background of the Abbey Road shot that I was talking about as well. But also, Stephen King got the idea to title his book "The Shining" from a John Lennon song called "Instant Karma," where the song goes, we all shine on, and that's where he got the inspiration. So he got the inspiration to call it The Shining. It was wild. The connections are insane. And then also within The Shining, you have Wendy reading Catcher in the Rye, which Catcher in the Rye has been identified as an MK Ultra Manchurian Candidate style trigger for assassinations, and John Lennon was murdered less than a year after the release of The Shining, and Mark David Chapman was reading Catcher in the Rye on the scene when the police showed up after he had shot Lennon, and whenever he went to court to testify to the reason that he shot John Lennon, he stood up and he said, "If you want my defense, all you got to do is read Catcher in the Rye." And then there's another assassination that happened less than a year of the release of The Shining 2, which was John Hinckley Jr. attempted assassination on Ronald Reagan, where Catcher in the Rye was also at the scene. And John Hinckley Jr. has actually been released from prison, and he has a YouTube channel where he talks about folk music.
What?
Yeah.
No way.
Little interesting tidbit there. And I don't think I have the slide in here yet, but it's another Beatles reference in here, is that Stephen King, well, not Stephen King, sorry, Stanley Kubrick was reported to be in talks to direct Lord of the Rings. Okay, and the Beatles were all the Beatles were going to be in this Lord of the Rings Stanley Kubrick film adaptation, and they were going to play the Hobbits. It's wild, dude. All the connections to the Beatles in here, and Kubrick declined it because he said that it was basically unfilmable at that time because special effects hadn't, become advanced enough, and it later landed in on Peter Jackson. And Peter Jackson obviously, directed the three Lord of the Rings movies. But here's another continuity error as well, which is when Danny and Wendy go into the bathroom before Jack goes in. There's a lamp with a lampshade on the nightstand that is crooked. And then when Jack breaks down that first door to get into the apartment, the lampshade is straight. This one's another really interesting one that other people have pointed out before, which is when Jack is breaking down the door to the bathroom and he puts his face through there and utters the famous line, here's Johnny, that everybody knows about. He only breaks down one of the quarter panels of the door.
Yeah.
And then when Halloran pulls up in the snowcat on top of the mountain and he hears Halloran pull up, he turns around and the shot changes and the other side of the door panel has also been destroyed. And this is the mother daddy of them that we've put together, and several people have seen this poster. We're not the first people to see this poster in the background when Danny sees the twins for the first time in the games room, but they've all gotten what the poster means wrong. They think that it's referencing Monarch Mountain in Colorado, or that this guy in the background, which is of a ski, the poster is the ski guy, that it's actually symbolizing the Minotaur, that has something to do with Kubrick's, the famous Kubrick stare that a lot of the actors within Kubrick's films do, like Alex in A Clockwork Orange, like Full Metal Jacket and The Shining, where they do the head down, eyes tilted up, called the Kubrick stare. But what this is really referring to is Monarch, CIA, mind control.
Yep.
And this one here, other people have pointed out at the end of the film, whenever the picture on the wall fades from a far up picture, which is in this top panel, to a close up shot in the bottom panel here. For a split second, you can see a little Hitler mustache forming on Jack's face there. And then that also relates to what I found in the background of the gold room, and which is a Nazi swastika, which we saw in the trailer of this movie. And some people have said that I wasn't the first person to see it. I believed that I was the first person to see it because I never heard anybody talk about it before. So I may or may not have been the first person to see it. Who knows? But I was really proud whenever I found it, because the only way that I seen it was, I watched The Shining on the big screen. It was doing a showing a retelling of it. Well, not a retelling, but the movie theater that was close to where I lived last year was doing a Halloween special, and they were re-showing The Shining, and we went to the theater and watched it on the big screen, and that's how I was able to see the Nazi swastika in the background. And that is the end of the presentation. I hope people enjoyed it. Those were some bonus things that was not in the movie, and we could have made the movie like 4 hours long easily. I mean, it could have spent just 2 or 3 hours alone on all of the different continuity errors within The Shining and like talking about them. But yep.
Yeah, man, that's crazy that there's so many, and so many that are just obviously deliberate, And I notice there's a bit of a theme with light in there, light switches, the lamp, the dwarf was dopey, dope. So it's like all these, errors actually have a bit of a meaning to them as well, which is interesting.
Yeah, double and triple meanings. It's all really symbolic, and that's what Kubrick wanted to do with all of his movies. Like, he didn't want to come out and outright tell you what the movie was actually about. That's why he avoided doing interviews. He would, he wanted the audience to come up with their own theories and their own ideas as to what his movies were really about. And that's why we 100% believe that these, which we have a minute long audio clip of Kubrick talking during the credits of our movie where he's explaining all this, where he's like, I want the audience to figure out if this was deliberate or if it wasn't deliberate. But just having the awareness to know that there's these mistakes in your movie, it's deliberate. It's done on purpose.
Oh, of course. Yeah, 100%. Especially, with someone like Kubrick, like you said, like with the inside of the bomber, like he was so meticulous to get it absolutely perfect, and then what? Then he just completely forgets that in another movie, and he's just like, oh well, And the carpet scene, clearly they've turned him around, or they've done something to the carpet and set up, the little toys exactly the same. So I mean, it's deliberate, right? It's not like just oh, whoops, we shot it in the wrong studio or so, because all these would have been stages that were built, right? Sets that were built. So it's definitely deliberate. So yeah, man. I mean, that's it. I can't believe some of those things. I can't believe that you've caught. You must have seen that movie a lot of times, man. I've only seen it once, but
Well, some of those were things that other people had seen prior to us that I've just included in there as well. So I can't take credit for all of it. But yeah, it's incredible how many there are in the dialogue errors in there too, because it's just not with things disappearing and reappearing. It's also within the dialogue of the characters, and there's only one reason that you would do it like that, that it's an experiment, and you'll realize when you watch our movie, The Clockwork Shining, that why all of those are there, and everything starts to make sense. The bear costume makes sense. All the stuff that's going on it makes 100% complete sense, and the CIA was known for spiking alcoholic drinks with hallucinogenic drugs. I mean, there's real life examples of that. Frank
yeah,
Olson happened to Frank Olson. Some of the first MK Ultra programs were done on the Army personnel, Army
yes,
volunteer
yeah,
personnel, and they used a drug that was like 100 times more powerful than LSD that would literally put these Army volunteers out of their mind for weeks at a time. And a lot of that was aerosol. That was hallucinogenic aerosol called BZ. And they would even do open field testing with it. They would go out and simulate a battle position and then just have barrels and barrels of aerosolized BZ hallucinogenic drug just spraying on all of these Army personnel.
yeah.
So,
That's crazy because that was also like the drug that was introduced to the whole hippie movement, right? And the whole Laurel Canyon connection there. So yeah, it's crazy. Like that's the thing about your docker. There's so many connections. It connects up so many different things, which I found, really interesting. So it's a really good watch, guys. So definitely recommend going and checking it out. And the whole music thing, and I think, Mark Devlin's done a good job over the last few years of exposing the whole music scene, and and we can see it today, right? It's now turned into, you know, bloody satanic rituals on stage, right? And like mass hypnosis and all this stuff. So it's interesting, from the point of view of, Kubrick's movie and what was going on back then, but also that this is what we're living in. This is what it looks like, right? They're literally trying to mind control the whole population now. They're putting drugs in all the food. They're putting, violence all over the thing. They're introducing little kids to, first shooter video games and, desensitizing them. And
yes.
it's just it's really good to get a bigger perspective on where we are right now and what's actually going on. So no, well done to you and Jay for creating it, man. It's a really good watch.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And yeah, it does tie into, you know, everything that's going on right now and still going on with Britney Spears. I don't know if you've seen the Britney Spears video that came out on Monday on her birthday, where she's on there and she's like, I'm not turning, how old did she say? 42? It was either 41 or 42 or whatever. She says, I'm not turning whatever age that she is. I think it's 40, 41. She said, it's not my birthday. I'm actually 5 years old. I'm going to kindergarten tomorrow. Yep.
What? Oh my God, I haven't seen that, but I've seen the she's done some weird dancing ones, but also that famous interview where she just starts talking like kind of gibberish, right? And she's like, oh no, what's happening? Oh, there we go. You know, like, is it with Diane Sawyer? And she just kind of loses her mind there for a bit.
Yeah, with Diane
So,
Sawyer. Yeah, that was from
and
2010. Yeah.
yeah. And then of course the whole, you know, the diddler, right, that's come out recently and all the sort of information that's starting to pour out about that. And it's the same story, right? It's the whole sort of mind control trauma thing, and they're doing it to all these pop stars that are clearly put up because, you know, like you've mentioned before, like there's so many good musicians out there and singers and songwriters, but you know, unless you got connections, mate, you're not getting on the world stage, right? The ones that are put up there are put up there for a reason, which means that they do what they're told. And clearly it looks like they all have to go through their rituals, right, before they make the grade.
And that's a big thing about Stanley Kubrick as well. Supposedly at the during the filming of Eyes Wide Shut, Kubrick made Tom Cruise put on a dress. And like he was being filmed.
That's
You
another
got the
thing, like,
dress,
yeah,
the dress rituals, the humiliation rituals, and
yeah,
all that. Like, and yeah, it's freaking wild. But here's the Britney Spears most recent thing when Britney Spears. This was on Monday, which I don't know when you're going to release this episode, but this was Monday. The hold on, let me Monday. Look at the calendar
what was
real
it,
quick
the
and find out
first?
what date that was, so I can make sure and get it accurate. Okay, this was on Monday the 2nd. So Monday the 2nd was her birthday, and she released this video.
But anyways, it's my birthday. I'm not turning 42. I'm turning 5 this year. I'm turning 5 years old, and I have to go to kindergarten tomorrow. Baby strawberry, a very, very cute baby cake that my friend. It really kind of hurts my feelings that the paparazzi make my face look like I'm wearing like a white Jason mask. It doesn't even look like me. They've always been incredibly cruel to me, the paparazzi in pictures and the way they've illustrated me to be in. Some of it, I know I'm not perfect at all by any means, but some of it is extremely mean and cruel. And that's why I've moved to Mexico.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's just creepy. Oh my
Wild,
God.
isn't it?
Oh my God. I don't know what to say about that. Like, just, yeah. Wow. Mind fracturing, man. I mean, it
Yeah, that
just
was
makes you
just on
wonder what
Monday.
some
That
of
was just like four days ago. And I
and
got it
and
wrong,
I
guys. Okay, don't come after me. She was 40. She's turning 42. What did I say? 41. I said 41 or 42. Okay, my bad. I got a lot of stuff in my brain that I gotta remember, but I knew it was around that time.
and she's got ties to the military as well, hasn't she?
Military, Disney. She was
Disney, of course.
what was the Disney? What were they called? The Musketeers or
The Mouseketeers, yeah,
Mouseketeers? Yeah.
with Justin Timberlake and Christina Aguilera and a lot of these people that came out at the same time. It's yeah, man, it's just wow. It's a lot to think about, man. I mean, it's yeah, like I said, that's why the documentary's so good, is it just ties so many things together and then makes you start getting all these other connections, you know, with all the information that we've sort of gathered over the last, you know, however long people have been looking into alternative, you know, research. It really makes you sort of see the bigger picture and start to connect a lot of dots. So Again, guys, worth checking out. We'll leave the link below so you can go and have a watch for yourself, and I'll recommend that you do.
Thank you very much, Campbell. Really appreciate it. Please support our documentary so we can continue making films. This is 100% completely independent. We don't have, any of these big contracts. We don't have a Netflix deal or anything like that. So we're completely self-funded. So the more that you guys, watch our movies that are out that you can rent or purchase, please do, because it supports us in the future so that we can continue to make really good documentaries and independent films that way, because obviously Hollywood is over. It's a rehashing of old garbage that Hollywood has just been pumping out for years and years and years. They're just doing requels, sequels, prequels, recognizable IP type of movies that isn't anything new, and they're starting to get into the TV show industry with that too. So they're getting ready to take over the TV industry as well with reboots and sequels and recognizable IP. So please support independent film and get out there and try and purchase our documentary that we put a lot of work and effort into making. And also, if you'd like to reach out to me personally, I'm on X on Raised by Giants 8 and on Instagram at Raised by Giants Pod and any and all podcast platforms and YouTube. Thanks so much for having me on, Campbell. Appreciate it, brother.
Thank you, and we'll leave all the links below. I'll leave the link to your JFK as well, your first documentary, and yeah, guys, support what you love, right? We're all after the truth, so if you want more of that, support the people that are out there doing it. And like Ryder said, all the support from this documentary will help him go on and make more, right? Make more really good, real, made by the people information that is not the Hollywood, right? It's not the spellcasters, the whole Hollywood wand, cast of actors, all that kind of stuff. Well, I think we're all done with that. So yeah, man, thanks for being here. It was really good. I really enjoyed that, and can't recommend your doco enough. So links below, guys. Go and check it out.